Trevor Story and Christian Arroyo both had very different seasons. One exceeded expectations and the other didn't. We're going to be reviewing their 2022 performances in this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Massachusetts Pirates team insider Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with me is NESN's Lauren Willand. Lauren, it's Friday. I am so excited for the weekend. I don't know about you. We are only a few days away. For some people that are, having Thanksgiving break, some people are going to see family for Thanksgiving. Black Friday deals are on the verge of happening. I don't know about you. I'm super excited for the weekend to already almost be here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had what I feel like is a weekend to myself in a very long time. I work Saturdays, but I have Sunday, Monday off. So catch me on my couch from Saturday night all the way to Tuesday when I go back. Oh no, I'm off Tuesday too. Oh, I'm even more excited now. Never mind. Forget I said anything. I'm so excited for this weekend. I'm also excited for Thanksgiving. It's probably my favorite holiday just because I love to eat. It's like my favorite hobby and I love being around my family. We get to watch football. I do have to work. I mean, that's not so fun part of working in sports, but Patriots are playing. Then we have the Bruins on Black Friday. Get myself a nice TV on Black Friday. So Lord knows we need it, but I'm excited too. I mean, it's getting to that fun time of holidays. They should be kind of cheerier, but usually they're grumpy. But I'm excited to not see snow on the ground. We saw some of that this week. I don't want to see any more of that, but I'm excited for the food, the holidays, and the decorations. I love when it gets to be Christmas decoration season.
Now, what is your go-to Thanksgiving food? Like when you see it on the table, it's like, all right, here we go.
It is the stuffing and the green bean casserole. Just give me a bowl of stuffing. I don't even care if it's that box stuffing. That is elite. Just give it to me. Just make a whole another round for the entire table. Give me like one box. I love stuffing and green bean casserole. My friends just got married last weekend and one of their sides was green bean casserole. I think I must have got like 3 scoops. It was so good.
I don't have anything else to say. I completely agree with you.
Yes.
My aunt makes a killer green bean casserole, and definitely super excited to eat tons of that next week. But going into this weekend with a little bit of different energy, some excitement, and one person that seemed like always brings the energy anytime he steps on the diamond in a Red Sox uniform is Christian Arroyo. And this season, it really seems like we saw the Christian Arroyo when the Red Sox first signed him back in 2020, what most fans anticipated. Throughout the last 2 years has really dealt with a lot of injuries, but has limited him to only a few games. It seems like over the past few years, anytime he seems to get hot, he gets some sort of unfortunate injury, but he always brings that personality in that injury or in that energy. But now he was able to back it up with some great performance.
Brings that injury too. I mean, he's a little bit injury prone. So you weren't too wrong there. But yeah, I mean, he's a fun guy to have around. He's, like you said, he's good energy. I would have liked to see, I mean, minus the injuries, I would have liked to seen a little bit more from him in terms of production. But yes, he did have career high 87 games. He did have a fine average, but his strikeouts were a little bit more than last season. Not by too much. I think it was like 6 or 7 more. But you do like to see that he was seeing the ball better, clearly, because he had more hits. Felt like he was more patient at times. And again, just that energy. But for the love of God, please, next season, keep him out of the outfield. I am begging. He's not an outfielder. He's just not. And I think he proved that a few times. And if people want to be patient with him, God love you, because I don't have that kind of patience.
Yeah, it was an interesting experiment in the Heim Bloom era. We've seen a lot of different interesting experiments,
Too many.
I think that they really need to stick with him as an infield utility player. I think it was great with how he handled the whole Trevor Story situation, just saying, Trevor, this is your position, and just being a team player like we've seen him be since he joined the Red Sox. And we talked about those injuries. He did get injured twice throughout the season. June 15th, got COVID for it seems like the billionth time, and then July 9th, he had a groin strain. But outside of that, I believe Christian Arroyo, John Schreiber, and Michael Wacha, you could really say were the only bright spots of the Red Sox 2022 season. And especially in the later half of the year when most fans and it seemed like the team weren't really playing for anything and the energy didn't really seem to be there. Christian Arroyo always seemed to make things happen, especially offensively when the Red Sox needed it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say those three were the only bright spots. I do think there were a few more, few and far between. And if we're not talking about, the Xander Bogaerts and the Rafael Devers, but there were very few bright spots with this team this season. But I mean, I think he had COVID pretty bad in June too. I think that it knocked him out pretty good. He had to go back to Worcester. I think that was time he went to Worcester, and because he just needed to get some game reps because he was just done for. And, we know that COVID affects people differently, and he just got it really, really bad. And thankfully he recovered. And I very much agree that the Red Sox need to use him as the utility infielder because that's where he's comfortable. We've seen him play. First base, maybe in a pinch. I mean, we know what happened his debut at first base, but we can play second base. We can fill in there. And that might be a question mark next year. Should Xander Bogaerts leave? And then do you put Kike at second? Do you put Story at short? There are a lot of question marks. And it's good to have someone like Arroyo who can play in the infield and give you some depth there, especially if somebody gets injured. I always say, like, a team is one injury away from needing that depth player. And he's, like you said, he's fun. I like when he's on the field. He's a great interview. The players seem to absolutely love him. And I just think in the short time he's been here, he's gained a lot of respect from the fans, from the team, and just from the organization as a whole. So hopefully he can be fully healthy in 2023 and just build upon his career high in games. I want to say that, but I also hope they don't need him for more than 87 games. I hope that they can have a healthy team, and that's about half the season. So I want him to get his at bats and his reps and everything. But if the team is healthy, maybe it's a good thing that he's not playing all the time. That sounds really mean, but I'm not coming off as mean. I swear, I like this guy. But hopefully he can just build on a strong-ish 2022 season and carry that into 2023 and play even better. I mean, we know he can. It's just a matter of staying healthy and hopefully not catching COVID next year.
Cross our fingers. But his energy and personality that he brings reminds me a lot of what we saw Michael Chavis bring in a short amount of time in Boston. That high energy. Also, I think both of those guys, once their careers are done, they will definitely be on TV. You saw, Christian Arroyo doing some, sideline reporting or some interviewing with JD Martinez, and he even said, you're really good at this. You're going to continue to try this stuff out. But we really saw two different at least batters for Christian Arroyo from first half to second half. First half, 224 hitter, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs. And then the second half, 329, 2 home runs, and 23 RBIs. And especially down the stretch, like I mentioned to start this, he just seemed so confident at the plate. And really any time you needed somebody to come up clutch, Christian Arroyo came in that spot. And, we did episodes 5 days a week. And it really seemed like throughout the time, didn't matter if the Red Sox were winning or losing, Christian Arroyo was always somebody that we brought up.
Yeah, he was. Whether that was for like those post-game interviews, like even if he was just bringing the energy, even his gaffes in the outfield when he just looked like he was dancing out there when he lost the ball and kind of freaked himself out. We were always bringing him up, good, bad, funny, ugly. And when it was bad, it wasn't like he was having the outfield thing was a bad performance, but we weren't like crapping all over him, and we weren't, going after him, but we were bringing him up constantly, whether, like I said, whether it was good or bad. And usually it was good. Usually he brought that bright spot, that almost like humor that we needed. Even that outfield thing, like I was like, that sucked. That was really, really bad. but the memes were really funny that came from it. I'm like, it's providing some comedic relief in this godforsaken season that just needs to end already.
I agree, and he's somebody that I'm really curious to see, where the Red Sox go with him. He's arbitration eligible this season, free agent in 2025. I'm curious what his ceiling is and where they really see the future with Christian Arroyo. Is he a long-term utility infielder? What and how will he really be able to continue to develop next season? Hopefully we can see a little bit more power and on-base production, but especially with that on-base production point, it was really interesting to look at the stats in terms of, his strikeouts versus hits compared from last year to this year. Last year, 44 strikeouts over 43 hits, and this year, a staggering 80 hits over 49 strikeouts. So you mentioned it, did a lot better job of being patient at the plate, finding ways to get on base. But I'm just curious to see how he builds off of this and really what the Red Sox see. Is Christian Arroyo a future second baseman? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that they're gonna have to look toward long term. So, you hopefully have your second baseman in Trevor Story long term. But I mean, so much of this what ifs depends on Bogarts and what happens there, how they're gonna shift everything. I don't think Christian Arroyo is a long-term Red Sox, and I mean long-term, like he'll probably be gone after this year. Maybe they even try to trade him, which I mean that would suck just because he is fun. Like we've mentioned, he's a really fun guy, but and you do need people like him on your roster. But I feel like there's almost too much of him. I just feel like there's a lot of utility guys, players that can play several positions. There's log jams at positions, and that's a shame, but I do think when they look at Christian Arroyo, do the Red Sox think he's in their long-term plans? Probably not.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to look at it. And I was just thinking about it with the what ifs. It was fun to talk about it during the 2022 offseason of we'll worry about that in 2023. But now that it's at that point, we've talked about over the last few months, that security is going to feel a lot better when we're able to talk about this team and know what the Red Sox infield looks like, or just the few parts of the depth chart in general. And there aren't all these question marks, but those question marks are going to continue to be answered throughout this offseason, hopefully. And hopefully it's stuff we're not super disappointed about, but you'll obviously hear us react about it on here. But next segment, we're going to be talking about Trevor's story. But before we do that, Lauren just wants to talk to you about BetOnline.
BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting sports info, your sports betting info, so your stats, the news, and analysis. You can get all the latest odds, the trends, and for every professional and amateur league out there. From football, the Patriots have a game against the Jets coming up. To basketball, the Celtics are just absolutely cruising through the NBA right now. Soccer and esports, we've got everything at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those over at BetOnline as well. It's always the fastest and the easiest way to get your betting fixed. If you picked Aaron Judge to win the AL MVP, you probably are feeling pretty good about yourself after he won on Thursday night. Head to BetOnline, use the website, or you can use your mobile device to learn more about the trends, all the action, everything that is happening in the betting world. That's BetOnline, where the game starts.
That was such a debate throughout all of this season, especially the later part of the season. Shohei or Judge. And even though, we're talking about Trevor Story and Christian Arroyo in this episode, I'm happy he was able to win it. Even though he is a Yankee, he did deserve it with the remarkable season that he did have, 62 home runs. And especially with just like the back and forth of sort of the debate between Judge and Ohtani. I am very curious to see if they do change the award slightly. Like, I heard people talking about the best overall player and the MVP, but I'm not super surprised that Judge ultimately came away with the win.
Oh yeah, and my big argument, and we're not going to go like too far into this, but my big argument is that Aaron Judge made the Yankees a better team, and that made him incredibly valuable to the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani, what he's doing is incredible. I was a doubter that he'd be able to keep up being the two-way player for this long, but the poor Angels, or you know what? No, not the poor Angels. Poor Ohtani is with the Angels. Whether he's there or not, they're not a good team. They weren't going to the playoffs regardless. Like you put him on that roster, they're not going to the playoffs. You have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, you're not going to the playoffs. That's an Angels problem. So he's still going to be Ohtani's still going to be Ohtani on another team. Maybe he makes a team like the Yankees better, but in this case, I do think it was Judge. I think that you could definitely make the case for Ohtani. There's so much respect for Ohtani and what he's able to do, but Judge makes the Yankees better at the end of the day, and Ohtani is just wasting away with the Angels.
Couldn't agree more. And Tyler Anderson definitely hopes that the Angels aren't in the playoffs next season. I don't know if you saw it. He's like, I'm going to
Yep.
tie with them because I didn't want the pressure of the playoffs. Doesn't make any sense to me. But now on to Trevor Story. He, as we mentioned in the opening, Christian Arroyo exceeded expectations. Story didn't, especially with the big money that the Red Sox gave to him during this past offseason. A little bit disappointing, sort of the output that we saw from Trevor Story. Only ended up playing 94 games total, and then in the second half only played 18 games. We saw him get injured multiple times throughout this season. On July 13th, he was placed on the 10-day DL with a right hand contusion. Sort of a weird situation where Strom and Story both got hit in the hand on opposite hands. I remember making the joke, why don't they just trade? But that wasn't that great. But then Story ended up coming back from the DL or IL, excuse me, on August 27th. And then he got injured once again with a left heel contusion on September 19th, and then ultimately came back on October 6th. But even when he was in the lineup and he was playing, especially being able to get on base, he struggled with that a lot. And the only time where we really ever saw him show up was in May.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really rough start to the season, and we can attribute some of that to having a new team, new home ballpark, getting used to everything, and being used to or getting used to a harsh kind of market. Boston is tough to play in, and we've known that. We've heard players talk about that, and I think for everything that Trevor Story, how bad he was in the beginning, handled it well. He went 0 for 4 against the Angels. He struck out 4 times. He was getting booed at Fenway, and he took it like a champ. So it was disappointing to see everything kind of happen. And when he got injured, I felt like he was starting to really find his groove. And that wrist injury was a freak thing because it ended up being a hairline fracture. They thought it was just the hand, and they ended up finding a fracture in his wrist. It was just felt like everything that could go wrong for the Red Sox and for Trevor Story went wrong. And then the heel contusion, I thought at that point they were just like, just shut him down for the season. Make sure he's healthy for 2023 because he signed a big contract. You don't want this to turn into another Chris Sale or another contract that people look back on and put it in the conversation with Pablo Sandoval, Hanley Ramirez, anything like that. So I know it's the first season. He only played 94 games. Obviously, I'm willing to just kind of wash my hands of this season for Story and look toward 2023 because he was good defensively. We saw exactly why they signed him, and playing second base, a position that he's played short for most of his career. So to just kind of transition to second, he made it look seamless. He made a lot of good plays out there, and the fact that he came back toward the end of the season, I think just kind of showed that he wanted to play and he wanted to be like, I don't care. I know we're out of it. There's literally nothing to play for, but I wanted to play. It's like when Nate Eovaldi was activated, he's like, I want to pitch. I just want to get back out there. So a very disappointing season for Story, but nothing I'm willing to panic over. And I mean, if this is going to be a trend, injuries happen. Nothing you can do about injuries. But if it's going to be a trend, I think Red Sox fans are just going to be very exhausted by the end of his contract.
I think that's one of the biggest pluses that fans need to remember. He was incredible at second base.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that type of defense at that spot, in my opinion, since Dustin Pedroia. There was so many times where he was making diving plays left and right, and you said it perfectly. He made it look seamless. And one other thing that I wanted to remind people of, especially with the slow start. I mean, he wasn't able to start spring training. For a few weeks, and I don't know if
Yep.
people remember or not, but I mean, he had a baby. He had to start much later, and he really only had 1 to 2 weeks to prepare for the season. And so,
And then he got the
especially,
flu. Didn't he get the
and he got
flu?
yeah, and
Or food
on
poisoning. He got wicked bad food poisoning.
and then on top of all of that, you mentioned it, having to get used to a new ballpark. Also new conditions as well. that's another thing as well. And one thing, I wanted to point out with May is, even though it seemed like he was, getting balls right down the middle, made it look like a freaking home run derby out there, 9 home runs in 27 games. It seemed like he was getting them left and right. But he also batted 218 during that month, and he also ended up leading the RBIs, I believe. After that month, I mean, he had 32 just in May alone. So it was nice to see sort of a glimpse of what we potentially could see, a full, healthy, comfortable Trevor Story in 2023. But definitely very disappointing. And, he was definitely disappointed about his performance as well. Cora spoke about it. He said they told Story, we're going to be better. I promise that we're going to be better. And Story said back to him, I promise you that I'm going to be better. So we're on the same page there. That's what Cora ended up saying. And so I think that as a whole, I think that not only Story is going to work his butt off during this offseason to be a much better player all around and stay healthy, but at the end of the day, I think, especially if Xander does leave, even though Story, this is his first season, or this will be his second season with the team, I think if Bogey leaves, we're going to see Story become one of the vocal leaders of this team. And, he's somebody that we saw really build strong relationships, it seemed like, with a lot of the players of the roster.
Yeah, and he's a veteran in this league. He knows what's to be expected of a championship caliber team, what's to be expected of the players around him, and how to make the players around him better, including himself. So I don't want to see Bogaerts go. I think we've made that very clear that we want the Red Sox to re-sign Bogaerts. But if that is the case, I do very much agree that Story will step up and be kind of that vocal leader. And no one's going to replace Bogaerts. He's a leader on this team too. But, overall, I think when you look at Story's first season, people are going to remember the ugly of it more than the positive, and that's probably because the ugly outweighed the good in this situation. But when it was good, it was very, very good. We know that Trevor Story's not a bust. We know that he's going to rebound. I think he's a motivated guy, and I think after the season, I think a lot of these players are motivated to make sure 2023 isn't a repeat of 2022. But that starts with this offseason, getting the help that they need, getting the missing pieces here, signing the pieces to make this team better than 2022. Because if you go out there without a plan B for Bogaerts, and they say they do have a plan B, but if you go out there just hoping that Story is going to be just as good at shortstop as he was at second, which he probably will, and just hoping pieces fall into place, that's terrible. That's a terrible plan. That doesn't make you a better team. But I do think that Story's ready for whatever 2023 comes his way. And hopefully there's no food poisoning. And I don't want to say hopefully there's not another baby. That's a blessing. If that's what the route they want to go. Absolutely. But hopefully there's no setbacks this year. Hopefully it's a healthy spring training and he can just get back to the Trevor Story we saw in May. Because if he can be that kind of player all season, that's a very dangerous player.
Couldn't agree more. And, one major thing that I wanted to end on with is, the thing that I think makes Story and Arroyo very similar players is their willingness to do whatever it takes to make the team better. I think it's very evident with how Story went about his business with being okay, not only signing with the Red Sox to change positions, but being okay with, all the BS that happened with the Bogaerts situations and saying that he wanted to play with Bogaerts in the long term. And, you mentioned it perfectly, the championship caliber team. That's why Trevor Story came to this team. And, I think that, not only him, but the rest of the franchise believes that this team can be that and are going to do everything that they can in their power to make that happen next season and hopefully beyond as well. But going into our final segment, I just want to take a second to talk to you about SimpliSafe. So if you've thought about securing your home with home security but haven't been pulling it off, you want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Red Sox listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. And this is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Here's why I love it. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike nationally. That's why our friends at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system. So there's more families that can feel safe and secure this holiday season. So order your SimpliSafe system for half off today and enjoy the advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. And especially in an emergency, they have great 24/7 professional monitoring agents using Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat that is real and can get priority police response. And they also have a whole house security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door with HD security cameras to ensure that everything in your house stays safe. So you don't want to miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. This is the biggest discount of the year, so you don't want to wait. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonmlb. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. I just wanted to take a second to end this episode. We haven't done this in a little bit, the mental health minute. I just wanted to speak about something real quick. I think it's super important with whatever it is in life that you just go with your intuition. If you feel like you might be in a situation, whether it's at work, whether it's just in regular life situations, that you feel like you're either not being valued, or the environment or whatever is going on isn't allowing you to be your best, trust your intuition and don't allow yourself to get in your mind and overthink about all these different scenarios on why things might not work out or whatever it is. Everything in your life is happening exactly how it's supposed to. And it's doing that to ensure that you either make the choice that is best for you or not best for you. And at the end of the day, you're going to learn the lessons that you're supposed to.
Yeah, there's a reason, it's cliche, but people do say trust your gut and that your gut never steers you wrong. That those gut feelings, they're not just, something trying to steer you the other way. Like it's trying to steer you in the right direction. And I live and die by my gut feelings. There's been times I've gone against it and I'm like, you fool. You know exactly what happens every time you go against it. And like you said, everyone's on their own journey. And at the end of the day, you have to make the decision, whatever that decision is, big or small. You have to make it what's best for you. But it's okay to just kind of step back, listen to your gut, and not always rush into a decision, whatever that decision is. Sleep on it, write down some pros and cons, journal, go for a walk, scream, take a nap, whatever you have to do. But like I said, I'm someone who just lives and dies by my gut feeling. And I don't care if I sound silly, where I'm like, I don't want to do that because it doesn't feel right to me. And I'm going to feel fine about it because I'm doing what's best for me at the end of the day. And I don't have to feel like I made the wrong decision because it was the right decision for me.
Completely agree. And, we greatly appreciate each and every one of you for trusting your gut and for watching or listening to this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast. And we really appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox, or myself. It's at Jake Geeky, and also Lauren. It's la. Three laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But as always, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in to the Locked On Red Sox podcast. We hope everybody has a great and relaxing weekend. We'll end it how we always end it. Let's go Sox. Peace.